Well, this is a project that I'm starting with this morning. This is my catnip and culinary bed, and catnip is doing beautifully. I lost a couple of my culinary herbs, and that little water fountain there is, water bath there is one that I have rigged for the bees. There's a floating stick there and some pebbles and everything. I just make sure that's full every morning because his uh, hives are right back up the hill behind here, what we call the knob. And they can go down to the pond, but some of them end up coming down here. We have the bees primarily for cultivation, for pollination here in the garden, and they also are trying to preserve them. You know, we've got our hive is into its made it through its third winter here, so we're pretty excited. He started out with Italians, but he's gone to Russians originally, and they're doing so much better for us. So what are you into over there? My big Pyrenees has found a folded up piece of plastic, and he is just loving the noises. If it crackles, he's happy. But anyhow, I'm going to be coming in here. I don't know how much of me will be in the picture, but I'll sit and talk here, okay? Let me get over here. I've got a box for compost. I've got a ton of dead nettle I'm going to harvest after it dries off a little bit this morning. I just got to get harvested and get out of there. I've got to turn that bed. But yeah, this is, I've got both chickweed and peppergrass in here. And so I'm weeding it out, and then I'm going to be loosening up the soil because it's gotten really compacted this year. And I'm going to loosen it up. What I do about every third year is I'll dig it up and improve it, you know, amend it, and see what I've got going on from there. Oh, this stuff is really dug in. And I have some yellow violets all along here. I'm trying to, oh, there's a baby. I've got a whole bunch of baby violets along here that I put out earlier this year. And most of them have taken off, so that's going to be good. But this is all catnip. We love using catnip tea. And I make it when I make horehound candies for coughs and stuff. So what I'm doing here is I'm just loosening this all up. They haven't gone to seed yet. I will leave them in the ground as organic matter. But these guys are right on the verge of going to seed, so I didn't get out to them fast enough. So I'm going to be pulling them up and getting rid of them. I've got a dock here. Let's see if I can get it out of here. Harvest that root. Yeah, there we go. We got it. Here we go, some more. Yellow dock is so good for you. We've got burdock and yellow dock and curly dock all here on the place. So it's a pretty neat thing. Most of the time what I'll do is first and second year after I do the amendments, I'll just use a broad fork. Or in my case, because I've got raised beds, it's feeding fork. And make all this loosened up without digging it so deep. But we tend to have extremely dry summers here. So what I try and do is a method called French intensive digging. And it's easy to look up. Basically, you dig double the depth of your spading fork and bring what's on the bottom up and amend it. So most of the beds are not all rock hard like this guy is. But most of the beds are very loose and friable. And they have good, healthy soil with lots of nutrition in them. They've got a lot of bacteria and a lot of fungi. Hello, Zoo. Did you come? This is my old man. This is Zeus. It's a Zuzu. The girls, yes, I know. The girls at the vet's office call him Mr. Marshmallow. Oh, he's getting ancient. He's moving a lot slower. But he's still my fella. He stays with me everywhere I go. My Zoo is there. No, you're not getting in there. No. Go on. Go, Zoo. Go on. Good boy. He's my shadow. And we're growing old together. And one of the tough things about having loving pets is that you do outlive them. You know, we've been through, I guess, 3 generations here since we've been on this place. We've been here actually 20 years in August. And it's tough to lose the ones we love like that, you know. I think the most heartbreaking one for me was my Chance, my collie. He was a great stock dog and one of my heroes. You know, he'd run a bear off or a boar hog, or I've seen him hanging onto the tail of a horse when we had horses. We had one of our other homes, we had 22 head of horses for a while. He bossed them all. I had a healer that was pretty good at that too. But what I'm going to do when I get this bed cleaned up is I'll bring in well, we've got rabbit and goat and chicken manure, but I'm going to be planting some transplants in here later on today, and because of that I'm going to be using rabbit manure because it is not a hot manure. It will not kill your plants unless it's just fresh, immediately fresh that day, and that's mainly from the urine that's in it. But if it's set for a day or two, it won't damage your plants. And I've got an overabundance right now, so I'll be doing that in almost all the beds that I amend this year. And we've got the goat shed needs cleaned out. Something. Let me take a moment here. Something we do, and it's something I learned from an old timer out in California when I was little, is over the winter we don't clean out our goat shed. We keep clean bedding down, usually fairly deep straw or pine shavings. I like straw better. And the premise is this, that as your manure decomposes, it creates warmth. And in putting a thermometer out there, it keeps the temperature in there 5 to 10 degrees higher than a stall that doesn't have that. And that's just an old-time farm method of keeping your animals warm. Most animals, if they don't have the wet and the wind, can handle cold, especially if they've got a warm place to stay, you know, a place where they can bed down and stay out of the wind. And so that's what we do. You know, I think good ventilation is one of the best things you can do to keep healthy animals. And it's just part of, how to say it, the old-time saying, work with nature instead of against it. We try and bring most of the things we do into the old saying, the circle of life. I know it sounds campy, you know. Pocahontas kind of set it up as being something to make fun of, but it really is true. Our goats, for instance, they're great companions, great pets. They are brush control. They give us manure. They give us milk and cheese and yogurt and butter. And they give us meat. You know, we're meat eaters. And we raise our meat responsibly. The animals are cared for and raised affectionately. We do have to remind ourselves that they are meat animals. You know, they get, when we raise a calf for butcher, he'd steak them, or hamburger. Pig will be pork chop or sausage for a name, so that is there. But they're butchered humanely. Almost everything is used. I mean, what we don't use, we pass on to friends who will use. And so I think it's all part of the cycle. And everything we have, you know, my rabbits are meat and manure, and I sell some, and I got my breeding animals are pets. I mean, they come up for pets and treats and greet me at the cage door and everything. I mean, you know, whether I've got food or not. It's, you know, our dogs, we tend to be really involved. They're part of the family. They are dogs. They have a job to do, and they have discipline and everything, but they're also loving companions. I'm not a fan of house dogs. My husband is, so we currently have 2 dogs and a pup in the house with us, but they're outside dogs. They go out in the morning. They kind of come and go at will unless it's really cold. Now, if we get down into, you know, single digits, the dogs are inside, or else they're in one of the sheds. I'm sitting here listening to the birds. We've got a pair of jaybirds now. I love jaybirds. They tickle me. They're coming to this water, and then I keep sunflower seed out for them. Oh, hello, beautiful. Uh, we've got we've got warblers, we've got finches, we've got titmice, phoebes. We've got two pair of the pileated woodpeckers on the place. We've got red-tailed hawks nesting here. We've got a sharp-shin nesting across the creek, and we've got a Cooper's hawk up the creek that comes in and hunts in this area. You know, and the birds are down here working the garden with me. You know, they're looking for stuff to munch on. You know, I admit, on my fruit trees, I better put a net over it, or they'll be after the fruit. But, you know, that's what this place, there's a peace here. It gets noisy. Animals get raucous when there's a coon or something in the feed room or the milk room, or maybe the dogs get in a fight over something, you know. But one of my favorite books was about a colony, a spaceship colony that crash landed on a planet. It was a pretty rough planet, but they were still at the point where they were hoping for rescue. So one of their engineers goes up to the top of the mountain after I guess they'd been there about 6 months, and he was taking sightings and everything, trying to figure out just where they were in the galaxy. And he gets up on top of the mountain, and he listens. And he suddenly crosses his mind that the only sounds that he hears are things from nature, or the things that are very intensely integrated into their life. You know, the sound of the mill wheel turning, the sound of axes where the guys are chopping wood for the winter. Just the sounds were part of the life. And that's true in the city, too. I mean, you have distinctive city sounds. I mean, you know, I've lived and worked in larger areas, you know, D.C., and when I was overseas, I was in Rome and Paris and London. It's a different, there's a rhythm everywhere you live, but the rhythm here is so different, you know. Oh, I've got a pair of cardinals on the back end of the greenhouse right now. They're walking up and down the greenhouse. I'm wondering what's on top. Oh, it's seeds. It's seeds from one of the trees. Okay. How neat. But they're nesting in that brush pile down there that I've shown you a couple of times. My elderberries are all putting out leaves. I've got some that I've got to move. You know, not the best of times to move them, but they've got to move, or there'll be trees out. There'll be elderberry trees instead of elderberry bushes. So anyhow, back to work, guys. I'll try and show you the finished product before we finish up today. Okay, old lady, back up on the knees. All right, here we go. Oh, my catnip has turned so pretty. I've got probably 3 dozen plants in here. And it'll get head high, and when it blooms, the bees will just cover this area. And I'm setting out some oregano and thyme. I've got more back up along the back there, and I've got what I call garden sage, the longleaf sage. I've got some bergamot sage in another part of the garden. Bergamot sage, that is a story. We have a herbalist who has a garden up on the Missouri border. He travels a lot, gave a lot of lectures different places. And he went to a castle in Germany, and Bergarten Castle, I guess it was. And he found this beautiful kind of roundish leaf sage. And he asked if he could get a start of it. And he was told no. Well, evidently this gentleman backed up to the plant, stuck a couple leaves with kind of green stems in it, put them in his pocket, took them home and got them started. And it's interesting because it's now the commercial sage in the U.S. You see fields, and you know, everywhere you go, that's the sage that's usually in garden centers and most of the big lot stores. And it kind of tickles me. I learned that story maybe 30 years ago, and now it's this monstrous sage that we're using in the States, all from those little cuttings. And that's hilarious. But it's what people do, you know. I have a lady that I follow who went to Scotland. She has some very pretty flowers in her garden. But anyhow, you guys have a good one. I'll get back with you and show you some more pictures and so on. I gotta get up here. Let me turn this off. You have a good day.